Welcome back, everyone, to the Mortgage Heroes Weekly Podcast. I'm Andy.
And I'm Brian.
And I'm Mikey.
Yeah, all right. We got Lonesome Mike on the show. That's Loan Some Money, guys. It's not because he's lonely. That's Lonesome Mike filling in for Will today. He is on vacation. So today, the three of us are going to cover mortgage payments increasing 17% on average annually to $2,162, again, average, in the month of July. Did we reach the peak of mortgage rates already this year? The U.S. CoreLogic S&P Case-Shiller Index was even year over year in June. Does this signal a market shift? And single-family construction slows across the country in quarter two. That actually competes with some of the other housing information we talked about recently. So let's get right into it, guys. First article today, mortgage payments increased 17% annually to $2,162. That's $2,162 in July. So what is happening? Because this is not in San Diego. That payment looks really nice.
Yeah, I'm like, where is this? No, but one of the things that did stand out right off the bat here is median earnings were up 3.7% compared to 1 year ago, but payments were up 17.2%. So realistically, 13.5 increase if you're adding, the increase of earnings. But where are you getting the 13.5% extra on your earnings to match the growth in payments?
Yeah, that makes it pretty tight, doesn't it? And my first thought when I read this was, okay, first of all, this is not in San Diego.
No.
Yeah, it is the median. But what's crazy about this is just this is I'd seen another chart unrelated to this article where the distance between it was basically an affordability chart. Where it was talking about the increase of median earnings compared to the increase of median home price over the last 20 years.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. So this plays hand in hand with one of the other things we talked about recently, which about California affordability is only 16% of Californians can afford to qualify in California. Yeah. So I know this is a national median, but what's also interesting to me here is that the FHA loan applicants, that was $1,854 in July, but last year, a year ago, it was only $1,461. That's a 26% increase. So I did the quick math on this. So it's a $395 a month change for the higher, which is 26% increase.
And just so people hear that listen locally, I mean, these numbers will still basically play out here in San Diego. Likewise, maybe not as much, but the difference in payments are going to be more significant. But you can get an idea of the fluctuation in payments just around the United States. But here in our micro market, these numbers will mirror, but I feel they're going to be a lot more detrimental than the average national.
Yeah. Did anyone else notice though that with conventional loan applications, the average payment actually went down from June?
Yes, I saw that month over month went down.
I didn't.
Year over year, it is up.
Yes.
So that is helpful. That's a little bit representative of rates softening a little bit temporarily. So good point there by Lonesome Mike. Again, the benefit of loaning some money is he can say stuff like that. So, it was. Oh, go ahead.
No. Another thing I did notice that is just something that continues to come up is high rates plus high purchase prices for the houses, and it's basically like a 1-2 punch combo that is continuously just bringing down first-time home buyers, and the opportunities that present themselves if you're not moving quickly. Like on an offer we just got accepted today, the rates did move a little bit, and now it's going to be a little bit different. So that's how quickly things are moving. If you don't have the right things in place, your payment can switch from one day to another. Yeah,
and this is coming from the Mortgage Bankers Association. So this is certainly from I guess I'd say the tip of the sword when it comes from data and where we're getting it. This is unlike some of the other data which can be refined later or adjusted after the fact, such as unemployment and things like that. I'm not going to get down that rabbit hole, but this is the Mortgage Bankers Association. This is from the front lines of what's happening in mortgage. And I want to quote Edward Sealer here, who's an economist for the MBA. He said, prospective homebuyers continue to face challenging conditions in July, with elevated and volatile mortgage rates and low housing inventory serving as a formidable 1-2 punch that suppressed mortgage applications and sales activity. And that went on to say, affordability will remain a hurdle for many households looking to buy a home, because here are the top 5 states. The top 5 states with the what they call the highest purchase application payment index,
Poppy,
the Poppy, are Idaho, Nevada, Arizona, California, ding ding ding, and Florida. So we're not out of the woods on this yet, guys. Although I would say $2,162 a month sounds great.
Oh, that would be great here in California.
No, but if you notice, these Idaho, Nevada, Arizona, and California all had growth in the last couple of years. So they're still very, very hot metropolitan areas that people want to move to, or desirable areas. And that's one of the reasons I feel they continue to hold their price and the range of where the market is at, because of the fact of the people that still continue to want to buy houses in these certain areas. So I don't think that's changing anytime soon.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, Brian, because one of the things I always talk about with my parents is eventually down the line, I would like to move out of California, but then I was really thinking about it because one of my best friends moved to Florida, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of thinking about the pros and the cons of California versus Florida. And then I get to thinking, well, I mean, nowhere beats San Diego. Nowhere beats California. As much as, maybe people don't like it here and a lot of people are moving, when you really think about it, you just can't beat San Diego.
And and I agree with that 100%, which makes the argument for people to, make those sacrifices to want to stay here in San Diego, find multiple ways to find other sources of income, house hack if you're a young millennial or a Gen Z, there's so many different ways that you could set yourself up to still stay here in San Diego. Although it's expensive, yeah, we know, but if you have the right plan in place, I feel that, there's people doing it and are continuing to do it, and people are going to continue to want to move here to San Diego.
And I'm going to reference something that Will said on a previous show too. Talking about, when he first bought a house and looked at the payment, he was like, oh gosh, how are we going to make this happen? And then made short-term concessions, but then over the course of time, as the payment became more normalized for him and his family, and then he ended up making more money over the course of time. Again, for most people, the trajectory is we're going to make more money over time, not the same or less. And so in that same instance, it may seem a little bit more disproportionate as a part of your income when you first start, but over the 3, 5, 7, 10 year mark, it starts to become less and less as you gain in your career, add additional income, or just make more money. So that is something to consider as well.
And one way a good way to look at it is, make short-term corrections in your short-term goals that still keep you a course to your long-term goals. So, the long-term goals stay the same, but maybe the immediate things that you got to do are going to switch up a little bit, but there's always a way.
Yeah. Good point. So does this mean, guys, that we have reached the peak for mortgage rates this year? This is the article that comments that the spread between the 10-year yield and mortgage rates improved last week. But again, I'm going to note this is just 1 week of data. This is not the new trend, a new direction that is remaining consistent. So, what do we think? Mortgage rates went from the average of 7.37 and then ended the week at 7.08, which is a good move, but it kind of got stuck there, and I don't think that it's going to go below that.
No, well, I mean, if you paid attention to last week's Fed information that came out, nothing signaled that they were going to stop or bring it down anytime soon. And like I said in previous podcasts, the sentiment and the, connotation you get from what they're saying is how the market takes it into consideration. And from what I've been seeing in the mortgage-backed securities, it wasn't going down after that, So I could expect that rates continue to either hold where they're at right now or slowly continue to creep back up to like the 8% range. But one thing that I did see was that, the market labor came out very strong. And one of the things that I wanted to point out that I wanted to get you guys' thoughts is what's going to happen once student loan payments need to come back to be paid. The time for you not to pay on those is coming up. So a lot of people that we approve when we run their credit, they have no payment on their student debt. Although we still have to hit them with the payment, now they're actually going to have to make that monthly payment, not deferred anymore.
Well, clarify. So when you're saying we hit them with a payment, we're not hitting with their actual payment. We're hitting with a proposed payment based on a certain ratio of what they'd pay every month, right?
Correct.
So one thing to be clear is that now that those payments become known and they become actual and reported to the credit bureaus, then it's going to be on the credit report with the true number.
True. So one of the ways that we use that formula, it's either if you don't report a payment on your credit report, then we have to use a certain formula to get that payment. But if you're already reporting a payment, we have to go with whichever one is higher. So at the time that your payments do come and you're getting approved, that formula may not be able to be there to save you anymore, and you're going to have to get hit with the full payment.
Yeah, and Andy, just piggybacking off what you led with, how this is only a week's data. I mean, it's exactly that. It's only a week's data. I feel we got to take it with a grain of salt because, and going back off of what Brian said off of last week's podcast is we talked about interest rates possibly moving to the 8% mark. And one of the things that we talked about why it's moving to the 8% mark is if the 10-year bond closes, I believe it was 4.38%.
Yeah.
If it closes above that, we can expect it to move there. And we're already near that. So once again, we just got to take it with a grain of salt because it is only 1 week of info.
But then again, paying close attention to this information right now is more critical than any because of the fact that how it could switch from 1 week to another. So, for instance, one of my clients we approved back on the end of just in the end of August on the 28th, right? We were able to give him a 6.125. Now I'm just quoting for example purposes, but this right here This week it went back up to 7.125. So it's a 1% difference, right?
Wow.
1% difference.
And that was just 1 week.
And that was just 1 week from August 28th to today, basically, is what the difference. And you actually worked on Lauren's file, which you said the pricing for. Yeah. So that right there for me is very alarming, because let's say you're looking for a house 1 week. The next week you're out of the game because you just lost literally $50,000 to $100,000 worth of purchase power.
Well, Brian, being that you're someone who has significantly more experience than me, what do you think a consumer who's maybe watching this, or maybe one of our clients watching this, what can they do to prevent falling into that trap?
One of the things that I suggest is running your numbers at 3 different ways: best scenario, worst case scenario, and then a little bit higher. Because of the volatility in the market, what you get approved for on that day may not be the same case tomorrow. So with that being said, also stick very closely to your lender. Every week, rerun your numbers if you're not in a contract, because of the fact that it could change very much, and then that could just completely break down your plan. So I would consider just staying on top of what's happening with the news. Find somebody that could be your source of information that you trust, and continuously just update your numbers so that you're always having the most accurate information based on your case.
Yeah, that's a really important point, because something that was also kind of brought up here, but I made a note to myself, is that this bond range that we're finding here, it's not over yet. It's not settled. It has picked a defined direction since the Fed started rate hikes in March of 2022, but we are still far from their estimated and their target inflation goal of 2%. So if we are to be in this bond window of this 4 to 4.25, and if it goes higher than 4.38, we're going to see mortgage rates go all the way up to 8s. That we're not even yet close to where they need to be inflation wise. So I think there's a lot more room in the tank, unfortunately, for that to change, for then us to really find what ground we're actually putting our feet on. The most recent unemployment number was 3.8%. We're looking for 4.5%. We got a ways to go. We have some time in the year left, but that's going to be some substantial pain in the market to get there, and I think that's going to come along with higher rates. So we'll have to see. Also on this, with mortgage rates, it does have this kind of loose correlation to listings and inventory, whether people put houses on the market or not. And we talked about this. Someone who has a house at 3% on their mortgage and they want to list it right now, they're immediately a buyer. Now at what, 7.25, 7.5, maybe even at their best day 6.75. Like, that's a huge difference coming from a house where you only owe 3%.
And that's something that a lot of people come to consider. Even if they have all that equity from their last house, that rate's still going to make the payment make you double think. And we had an example where even on the renting side, some people can afford a house for $3,600, 5 bedrooms, but then you go look at what's the current market, and you see an apartment, 2 bedrooms, pushing the exact same or even more than that, and you really come to think like, wow, does renting even make sense anymore for certain people? And that's what I have been seeing with a lot of clients that come in. The first thing I always ask is, well, what's the goal and what's the motivation behind you wanting to buy this property? A lot of them are telling me the rents just doesn't make sense anymore. I literally look at the Zillow prices. I go online and I look at a mortgage and I look at my rent, and I'm like, those $200-$300 I'm willing to sacrifice, in some instance even more, to be able to have a place where you're able to freely live and actually enjoy your life, and not just be in a small apartment or so.
Yep, as they say, the math ain't mathin'.
No, the math ain't mathin'.
Yeah. Oh. So with inventory, of course, we've seen really, really scarce inventory here in 2023. Where we're at right now is 10% lower inventory-wise than we were 1 year ago. But something that really struck my eye here was that in 2015 there were 1.25 million listings, and right now we have 508,000, which is 43% of that total. So we are talking about a number that is extremely substantial, not only from a percentage perspective, but that's a huge 700,000 difference, 700,000 units different. That is definitely putting price pressure and keeping price pressure on the upside.
No, of course, it's the golden handcuffs. People aren't willing to sell if the prices don't make sense. I mean, we're definitely seeing. I mean, if that doesn't prove the numbers and everything that we're talking about, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think so mortgage rates, obviously we're going to still see. Did we reach the peak? I'm going to say I don't think so. I would love to say we did and it's going to go down. I just think that's me being optimistic. If I'm being data driven, I'm saying no, we did not see the peak yet this year. What do you think?
As a loan officer, very optimistic. I want rates to go down. But looking at it from the data perspective and putting on my nerd hat, I don't think it's healthy for us to make the cut in rates just yet, because of the fact that we'd come right back up to where we're at right now. So I think think they're doing a very, very strong and hard job to basically hold things off as much as possible, but I just don't see them bringing down rates just yet. I think that we're not done. Yeah.
So what do you think, Mikey?
I mean, don't get me wrong. Of course, as a loan officer too, I would love to see rates go down. But, being realistic, there's no signs pointing to that, to be honest.
And those are the hard conversations that I'm glad we're able to have because of the fact that, it's not always, rainy and sunny and, everything's good. So I think a lot of people do need to come to the understanding that this is where we're at right now and this is where we're going to be for a little bit, and it's okay. There's ways that we could get around it.
Yeah, I think so. And so this whole mortgage rate conversation, dipping our toe into the inventory here kind of leads us right into the next topic, which is the U.S. CoreLogic S&P Case-Shiller Index was even year over year in June, signaling a market shift, maybe. So they cite, of course, elevated mortgage rates will likely keep a lid on additional gains for the rest of the year. In previous shows, we talked about some projections are that there will be mild increases of value over the rest of this year. But the biggest thing for me, guys, is this first graph that shows that we hit a trough. And we hit a trough in June of 2023. So while we may have seen a stagnation or a flattening year over year, what I'm seeing is we hit a trough. And in certain areas, we're going to get to this, certain areas you saw a little bit of a resurgence after a short little dip.
Yeah.
Which means that trough will be the quote unquote local bottom for prices, and that stabilization and that flattening is bound to continue. That's my 2 cents.
No, yeah, and even from previous expectations, a lot of people didn't think that houses were gonna, go up in value this upcoming year. But I've been seeing a lot of difference in opinions now recently with everything that's coming out, and they do expect houses to continue to go up. So, it goes right back to the never-ending story. We don't have enough houses for the demand that we currently have in the market, and I feel that's going to continue to be the story into 2024.
And there's a couple of conversations that keep coming back up that I'm seeing in either the comments threads or social media posts we're making. One of them is, hey, what about all this Airbnb inventory? And we had talked about that on a previous show. Airbnb reservations are significantly down. So maybe some of that will hit the market. But then you have the question that I have not been able to really wrestle and come to a conclusion myself is, at what point will the people with the big money bags sitting on the sidelines step in? So if you're talking about the BlackRocks, you're talking about the Chase, that they have like a war chest of cash ready. What are they waiting for? A 5% correction, a 10 or 20%? Like, how soon will they jump into the field and start grabbing up homes for cash out of the hands of aspiring home buyers who are qualified?
And that's scary to think, because if they're holding off and they're still not, hitting the market and buying in bulk, then they must know something that we don't know yet.
That. Right there. That, and then it makes me curious. Okay, well, at what point are they going to step in? So let's play a little game. Let's say you have $100 billion right now. $100 billion. Let's say you have $100 billion and you have a war chest amassed and you can spend it on properties. How risky would you get, and at what point, what kind of price discount would you need in order to start throwing money at homes, Mikey?
Well, I guess it's independent on the actual property, though, right?
I'm asking you. You got $100 billion. Okay. What do you think? What would you need, a 5% haircut, a 10% haircut? At what point would you jump in and start acquiring properties?
Based off market value, to be honest, if I were an investor, I'd want it not taking into account any repairs or things like that. I'd want it 20, maybe 30% at a discount.
Okay. All right. So do you think that you'll be too late to the game and people would step in before you and buy it at 15 or 10?
Quite possibly. Maybe not, though.
Maybe
that's not big enough.
Maybe
of a
not
discount.
at volume or at scale to buy like a whole neighborhood or something. Okay, that's good. What about you, Brian? What do you think?
I feel I would play on the riskier side and wait a lot more. Reason being is because I don't have much confidence in the Fed's words and how they say things based on all the stuff they said these last couple of years. So for me, it's really more of a let's wait and see, because if nothing's really changing, we've gone through almost a whole year of 2024. Rates went, up to 7, have been flirting with 6.5 to 7, higher days, some days, lower days, and other days. But I feel like we're yet to see something big still happen in the economy. Jobs are still jobbing. The math isn't mathing. So there's a lot of things that are still very unclear. And that's for why I foresee BlackRock and all these big institutions still holding off, because there's still a lot more blood to hit the markets, I believe.
Yeah, I think it is partly that, and I'd love to paint a different picture, a little bit more optimistic, but the truth is we've seen a lot more people step into real estate in 21, 22, and 23 that have cash and are buying them for long-term holds. And it isn't just for the short-term rentals. Yes, there was a huge amount of volume bump very quickly for people buying Airbnb. And again, that was conditional with people trying to get out of the city. You can't stay at a hotel. You can't go on a normal vacation. You're not going on the cruise ship, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, that's all done, over with. We're coming back to what people would normally traditionally do. And so I think there are going to be some people that hits the market. And I'm just very curious. I don't know that, let's just say you are going to go buy a house. You're going to buy a house. I'm going to go buy a house. And then in the room, mixed in those offers that three of us make, is some other offer that is better than ours, quicker than ours, and it's you're battling BlackRock or Chase or somebody else that's just got the cash, and they're like, hey, we'll close in 72 hours. We don't care what the house looks like. We're going to buy it and hold it forever.
And unfortunately, that's some of the situations that do arise, and that's certainly what's happening in certain markets. And I just feel that, as a person, you can only control what you can't control, right? And I had a conversation with one of my family members the other day where I was telling him, I'm like, Mom, I wish I didn't know as much as I know because of everything that we're exposed to in our industry, right? So in a way, you're oblivious to what's happening. All you know is that things are getting more expensive, everything's going up, and that's really what it looks like, right, to the regular everyday person. But in reality, for people like us that are in the trenches, looking at the data, looking at stuff that's really happening that can drastically change people's financial life and just life in general, it gets me to think, well, if we're saying the opposite of what's happening, what are we really doing to the people that we're trying to help? So therefore, I'm glad we were able to have these tough discussions and talk about what's really happening, because if we don't say it, who is? So I'm glad that, people tune in. And right now it's more about having the right plan to be able to have the right execution when the opportunity presents itself. And maybe it's not the right time for you, but you can prepare, build your war chest in your own way, and be ready to pull the trigger.
Yeah, and I think this goes to something we continue circling around, guys, which is if you're persistent and you have grit and you have it as your personal goal to get ready to buy a house, go buy a house. I honestly, for myself, I don't care who's in the room with me. I want to win. I want to compete to win. So it doesn't matter if I'm shadow boxing Chase or I'm shadow boxing BlackRock. If there's a place I want, I'm gonna go take it down. That's the attitude I have to bring to the table beyond my approval, if you will, because all this data that we're looking at shows that the prices are what they are. They're flattening in a lot of areas. They're still positive, not negative. You don't see the average going down. You see the average flattening. And that's the whole country. Yeah. There's so much wild variety in that number that we're still flat is kind of ridiculous to me, but also kind of cool. And that, even where there were some declines in like the big metro areas, where there were some declines, they're slowing. So they're not as steep and as long as we thought they would be. And I think that proves the counterpoint that maybe we don't get to 30. Maybe it won't get to 20. I have no idea. There's just this hasn't happened like this before.
But one thing I have started to see though is that a lot of people get how do I say it, intimidated by the high prices. But right now, I have been seeing offers getting accepted at not even the listing price, or we're not even the highest bid offer and we still get it accepted. So one of the things I am saying is that there is opportunity in the way that you present your offer, the people that guide you to get that offer, and the way that you communicate to the other party. It's not always about, hey, slapping the highest price on the offer, because, hey, what if the offer doesn't appraise? Now you have to come out of pocket or renegotiate.
That's a real issue. That's an actual real problem. It's the appraisal thing. And the other opportunity I would say is that because home equity is so high, sellers who may not be getting the offer that they want do have a little leverage. They can do seller closing cost credits. They could do a partial price reduction. They could do 2-1 buy down with you. There's lots of choices because the seller has all the cards in their hand and they can kind of leverage where they want to position themselves.
Yeah, and I think right now it's a perfect opportunity to ask, because if you don't ask, you're definitely not going to get anything. But I've seen people ask for $20,000 and they come back and say 15. Oh, well, great. That's still $15,000 that you would never have.
Well, I mean, Brian, we saw with our guy Tavon, maybe he's watching this, maybe he's not, but he just got into some new construction for only $525,000 with $35,000 in credit. That's ridiculous. That's pretty much unheard of. And I mean, listen to Brian talk right now. What I got out of it if I was a consumer is, if I'm even thinking about buying a house, let me just at least check. Let me see where I'm at. If you can't, then you at least know where you're at with your financial picture, and now you have a clear mortgage plan going forward. And you're set up for success now.
You guys see that 100%. Meme where there's like a Halloween skeleton looking out the blinds, and it says homeowners waiting for prices to drop. Have you seen that one? Oh my God.
Yeah, and it's like, something's always going to be happening in the economy. So if you're even thinking about it, really what it comes down to is what's your situation.
Yeah.
I mean, 100%. We see some people can afford right now, some of them can't. I mean, talk to your loan officer, hopefully us, but I mean, if not, just at least get a feel for what your whole financial picture is. Set yourself 100%. Up for success.
And for those of you watching and listening here in San Diego, one of the charts that we have here that references San Diego is their prices have increased double the pre-pandemic rate. So there was a measurement of June of 2015 to June of 2019, and then they compared that to June of 2023. And it was 0.6 compared to 1.1, which is just about double. Wow. So what you're seeing in San Diego is, despite all of the challenges and the business being open, business being closed, you can go here, you can't go here, you got to do this, you can't do that, all that stuff, and then coming back out of all that, you still see San Diego having doubled its increase of appreciation and home price in that time. So basically now, compared to the window, which was 2015 to 2019, that to me signals more than anything else probably that we are probably in this price point to stay for a long time to come.
Well, and actually, I know maybe this might not sound super optimistic, just everything we've been saying so far for a consumer, but realistically for a consumer, you got to remember that because of where we're at right now, they're coming out with so many different programs to help people get in homes. For example, even I forgot where I was scrolling. It was probably Instagram, but I seen a Zillow ad for now. They're going to be offering 1% down payment loans. So it's like, it's not the end of the world. You can still buy in this market. You just got to find the right loan officer or the right bank, whatever, with the right program for you.
And did you know Cal Haffa Dream Program is making a comeback?
Cal Haffa HFA Dream for All
is making a comeback in 2024.
Dude, if only they knew.
Man, you got to go back and watch our Easter video from this year, and you can see Mikey dressed up in a rabbit suit talking about Cal Haffa.
Oh,
that's
my
funny.
God.
So another thing just real interesting in this article, guys, was that the price increases in San Diego were across all different tiers: the low tier home price, medium tier, and high tier. Which, again, no surprise, it's San Diego. You can see on the chart that other cities have more kind of disparate price changes based on whether it's the high tier, medium, or low, but it's pretty even for San Diego. And again, some of the more like, let's say, long-term centric places where people just move and they'll just hunker down and stay because it's beautiful and they want to be there.
Look at San Francisco. Nobody wants to go there anymore.
San Francisco is a whole different... It's a whole different show. It's either a really, really long show or a very short one.
Yeah. Well, guys, it's like, can we even be surprised with that in San Diego? It's because going back to my point, who doesn't want to live here?
Yeah.
So one last thing I did want to bring about affordability is, one of the, I'll give you guys an insider tip right now. A lot of people don't like to use the down payment assistance program, but if you have money in the bank and you have your own funds, you can combine it with the down payment assistance program, which now I'm an advocate for, because then it's going to give you a lower payment and a better chance of getting approved for something that you want. So that's my 2 cents on that.
That's good. So let's close out today, guys. Single family construction slows across the country in Q2. Now, we had talked previously about how home builders really have all the cards in their hand. They can decide how much inventory they bring, how much they don't, based on how many months of supply of homes there are, what kind of the appetite for buying is. They're right now filling a gap of inventory because we don't have enough of resale homes or existing homes on the market. So they're bringing a lot of inventory to that. But now we see that single family construction is slowing. So it doesn't mean it's going negative. They're not tearing homes down. Let's be clear. The National Association of Home Builders, the NAHB, is saying that single-family home building slowed across the country during the second quarter of 2023, which honestly, I was a little bit surprised because to me, you look at permits, you look at housing starts, yes, cost of labor, yes, cost of goods is up, but we don't have inventory backlogs like we did before, and we still have demand.
So do you think they know something we don't if they're slowing the brakes down when everything else is, singling out another thing? And it goes back to the conversation we said earlier. When builders want to move product, all they have to do is flash a little bit of here and there. And look, $35,000 appear to make it happen.
Yeah, I think it is a little bit
out of nowhere.
I know what I mean.
I think it
out of their margins.
I think it is. I think it's a couple things happening at once. Number one, they clearly are telling us that they have an issue finding good labor that's consistent, that will stay and can get jobs done on time. That's a problem. We locally have seen construction delays. Yes or no?
Yeah, 100%.
Yes, we have.
100%.
There is there's a legitimacy to the cost of the goods or raw materials to construct right now, and they now are facing a legitimate commercial lending issue. The commercial lending part of this, I think, is part of it. So they may be slowing. You could say that maybe they're nefariously slowing the rate of new homes because they're trying to keep the prices high. But legitimately, if you go talk to a builder right now, I don't know what they'd tell you about their commercial lending options. They may not be there.
I mean, you see a lot of people, big corporations shutting down high, like San Francisco, for example. They pulled out a lot of operations for all the companies that they had people working in those offices. No need for anymore when you can work remote. So I think that's also something that's, how do I say it, very unspoken about, that we're still going to see a lot of repercussion. And even though it's commercial, think about it. People work for certain companies that have commercial assets. So a lot of that is going to be a trickle effect. And when one domino falls, you will see that it starts hitting every other industry that's tied and connected to it.
Yep. One of the things that I wanted to read here from this is from Robert Dietz, the NAHB's chief economist, said that the latest HBGI data continue to show a changing geography for home construction. Multifamily and single-family construction have shifted to lower density markets with market share gains for those types of markets. This is especially true for apartment construction, which has seen a segment share decline for large metro areas as development shifts to the suburbs and exurbs, which, again, these lower density markets, I think, is where you're going to see more development because people are trying to get out of metros, trying to get out of high cost areas, and where people are having to carve back their personal finances, they're going to go to look, where can I afford? And for those who are now going to deal with the college repayment of student loans, this is going to be even more important. So I think there's maybe a semi-slow walk that's going to help construction in the long term because of some of these new factors.
So something else that I did see here that goes along with what you said is rural areas. So right here it says, despite the decline over the past 4 years, rural markets have shown resilience as the single-family home building market share has risen from 9.4% at the end of 2019 to 12% early in 2023. And you know what? It makes perfect sense. I do have clients that are opting to go out of the suburbs, out of the city, because of the fact that they could get more bang for the buck. They can actually get a house, not a condo, and they'll be within a payment that makes sense for them. Now, will they have to make a commute? Yes, but that goes to the point that we're making. Everything right now comes with a sacrifice. So what are you willing to sacrifice to get what you want?
Well, actually, let me ask you guys this. If you were a builder here in San Diego, it's definitely not low density. There's still a lot of demand here. Wouldn't you want to build here, though?
Yes and no. It depends, right? Your cost to build, whether you can get building. There's a lot of permitting and licensing stuff here in San Diego alone. But my general answer to your question would be, I would go build where the puck is going next. That is what I think is going to be most long-term longevity. Like, even in the area we're sitting in right now, this land was held, and the land around us was held for decades before it started getting built. Not too far that direction was all rolling hills with cows and grassland and livestock. So Telegraph Canyon ended, Hotel Licks Road ended, and it was just green grass and cows. That was all owned for a long time, and then it became developed land only in the last 20, 30 years. So I would go where the puck is going to be next, because you have to look for space, you have to look for density issues, you have to look for opportunities, where can people afford, and you play that game, and then you start putting a shovel in the ground.
I feel, and I'm just spitballing here, I feel based off everything that we're seeing with the commercial space, I think there's a huge area of opportunity for the buildings that are going to be vacated or let go completely to be able to reuse that land or that property for a certain, housing type of deal, whether you're able to do mix of commercial and housing. But I feel that there is going to be lots of vacant areas that are commercial that could be rezoned to be residential properties, or a mix of both.
Yeah, and they might just be, you're going to start seeing that, and we had previously discussed that there will be municipality participation in development if there's not enough housing solutions, because people will just end up in situations that the city or the county or the local municipality does not want happening. Either people living in cars, staying on the street, RVs lining the sidewalks, that kind of thing, and they're not going to want that either. So there will have to be some sort of solution, but that's, I would be looking at what gives me the most value for my time and money commitment, and what also helps solve the problem. Because if you can solve the problem once and you can solve it twice, you can solve it a third time.
And I might be jumping ahead here, guys, but what do you think of that quote? Single family production should register growth in the months ahead as the Federal Reserve nears the end of its tightening cycle and mortgage rates begin to stabilize. Because I actually wrote down, I disagree.
Tell me. No, go for it.
I disagree just because, because of everything we talked about, especially last week. All the signs are pointing towards rates possibly going to 8%. And of course, I don't want to say they are going to 8%, but everything's pointing towards that. So, let's see, this was written on September 5th. Okay, never mind. I was going to say maybe he was a little late, but this was written on September 5th, 2023.
Yeah, but it's okay. And the thing that stood out for me, though, is stabilize. He's not saying tightening cycle and mortgage rates begin to decline.
100%. That's what I noticed.
Stabilize. I'm like, okay, you could have chosen the word decline there, but you didn't.
So when I think about stabilize, right, I think of it going like this, and then just going like this. But think about it. Where are we at in the ranges of it stabilizing down? Where is it going to stabilize to? Like 7%, 8%, 6%. And that's ultimately also something that we have to pay close attention to. But I feel it's not going to go. It's not going to go down for sure in the next coming 6 months. I am going to just say that, and we'll see in 6 months.
Yeah, I think they kind of bring up. They don't bring the point up, but they're kind of proving the point when they're looking at the multifamily sector reporting positive annual growth rates in just 3 markets. And then large metro core counties reporting the lowest multifamily production growth rate with a yearly drop of 10%. This all says scarcity. So scarcity is going to be part of the factor and the variable that keeps prices where they are. Scarcity of money is what keeps mortgage rates high. When there's more money that comes into the system, rates go down. We got to lend that money out. And we're not even talking about, guys, by the way, I know we talked about the student loan thing coming up, but we didn't talk about credit card defaults that are increasing. We didn't talk yet about car payment defaults that are increasing. So the consumer is going to continue facing pressure. And I think that having to stabilize rates is a shot across the bow signal that they're expecting we're going to be in this window for a while. Just like we talked about, this is not an easy solution. It's not making you turn in 2 or 3 months. This is going to be the story of 2023 going into 2024.
Yeah.
Would you guys say the rising default with credit card debt and auto loans, could one of those contributing factors be the fact that people are being laid off from their jobs, like one of the points Brian brought up?
I think it's part of it, and I think part of it is just it's spending too much of their monthly income and the inability to repay, because the things you have to eat, you got to pay your rent. So people are going to start making choices. If I got to have a roof over my head, number one, I got to have food on my table, number two. Those are my number one and my number two. My $1,000 car payment is number three, a distant number three. So instead of $1,000, I can get in a $300, $400, $500 car payment. That already helps me. But those defaults are a condition of, yes, maybe unemployment, tightening economics. But again, if I'm spending more on rent because I just renewed or I just moved, and I'm spending more on gas, I'm spending more on my car, then those are all basically competing for my earned dollars, and something's going to have to fall off.
Well, now I have a question for Brian. If we're seeing more default with just credit card debt and auto debt, do you see more defaults in mortgage debt happening? Maybe not later this year, but maybe next year?
So one of the things we talked about and been talking about earlier this year is that consumers will pay their house up until they can't anymore, and that's going to be their most important payment. So everything else will fall before that falls. So before people stop paying their houses, we're going to see credit card default, we're going to see student debt default, we're going to see auto defaults, and then the big one will fall. But keep a close eye on those starting to fall first, and we're already seeing those signalings right now that they're going up. There's a lot of stress in those sectors. So as soon as those dominoes start to fall, expect the big one to come as it goes.
And remember, people have a lot of equity. So while they can maybe still afford on paper and they need that HELOC, or they have to sell, let's say they can't refinance, it doesn't make sense financially, maybe it doesn't. But let's say they have to sell their place. Well, that brings a new house to the market for inventory purposes. Then they would be able to get out from underneath that, maybe pay off their debt. Maybe they can save the car and get rid of the payment by paying it off. Maybe they can pay off all their credit card or part of their student loans or whatever, and thus free up their income while they're still employed, thus allowing their money to be used for the new rent of wherever they got to go and paying for food and groceries and bills and that kind of thing.
I have maybe a guess. I think, we're in a situation where we're in a candle that's burning on both ends. And until one of them burns faster, then we're going to see one of the things fall. I believe that the Fed wants to see one of these things fall and have there be pain in the economy and the consumers for them to be like, okay, well, now that's going to hurt, and it's going to hurt a lot. So now you can't spend, and now that's going to start to bring down that slow effect of it's transitioning over to people stop spending because of the fact that the dominoes are falling financially, and now your situation is like, hey, I don't have more budget. I don't have more to go back and be able to pay or stay afloat for a couple of months. You're capped out. So once that happens, I feel we could start seeing things to switch over. Yeah. But we'll see. Like I said, I don't know.
I do see that over the next couple of years, there's going to be a big demand for credit restoration. That's going to be something that people are going to need to get their credit back up again. I really don't know how it's going to play out, guys, with car repossessions, credit card defaults, and the student loan thing. I mean, people are going to be coming under pressure. I think it would be dishonest for us to sit here and pretend like that's not happening in the lives of people, because off camera, off mic, these are the conversations that we're having with people. They're telling us they're feeling under pressure. And you can see their spending habits change. You can see their spending behaviors changing. Their habits are changing. They're going places less. And yes, it might look like on social media I'm out all the time and I'm doing all this stuff, but I'm telling you, man, I'm already talking to people right now that are really having some honest conversations around the table with their spouse, going, what are we going to do and how are we going to make it out of this?
I feel like you look at the news, you look at the media, and people are portraying and putting what they think and want people to see. But in reality, if you want to know the truth, talk to your people, talk to your closest people, talk to your closest friends, talk to your family members. If they're honest, they'll tell you where they're at, and that's enough you need to know to get a good idea of what actual people are going through. And all these numbers could be great. You see everything, economy's great, this and that, but talk to the real people that are in the economy, that work the economy, that make the economy. You'll see where they're at.
Yeah, that's right. And, they might be hard conversations to start, but, also there is a sense of commonality when people are able to talk about those things together and go, you know what, I'm feeling that same point too. I'm feeling that same pain. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm trying. Here's what I heard. Here's what I learned. And then be able to share that from a person-to-person perspective, which I think is also going to be very useful. So, all right, Mikey, best part of the show. What's your biggest takeaway today?
Biggest takeaway? To be honest, my biggest takeaway would be as if I were a consumer. If I'm even thinking about, if I even have plans to purchase a home in the next few years, I'm talking to a loan officer now. I'm getting my whole financial picture analyzed now. I'm coming up with a clear mortgage plan with my loan officer now, before things get better. So when things get better, I can actually take advantage of it.
Awesome. Brian?
I think for me is the biggest thing that stood out in all this is that there is opportunities and there is certain solutions, depending on your situation. Although rates are going to be playing a big factor in the next couple of months, I feel that if you prepare yourself right, whether it might be house hacking with a family member or, picking up extra hours or side income, I feel that, don't let the pressure of the rates trickle you out of the market. On the contrary, look for the solutions and find the sacrifices that you're willing to make so that you can get to where you want to be, because I guarantee you that next year things aren't going to be the same, and even the following year they might get a little bit better, but now you're 2 years behind when you could start today.
Yeah. My main thing today, guys, was the sharp increase of the median cost of FHA. I mean, this is where people look to be their first time home, their first time purchase. The stark increase of the 26% increase of the median price of the monthly payment for FHA is honestly a little bit disturbing to me. I'm very uncomfortable with that number. I can understand it being 10, maybe 15, or in line with the 17 print that was on the regular conventional mortgages, but 26%, honestly, that startled me. I did not really, and by the way, they didn't put this in the article. I had to do that math to come up with it. So I looked at the difference between the last year's number, this year's number, and then divided that difference by last year's starting point, and 26%, I am not comfortable with that.
The math is mathing.
The math is not mathing on that. So, all right, guys, favorite part of the show. Mikey, go.
Just being here with you guys. I mean, I was super excited to be on.
I honestly, Mike, you had some great questions that really, brought out the conversation to be a little bit more profound, more context. So I think you did great, and it was honestly really, really good to share this podcast with you. So
yeah, my favorite part of the show today was having Mikey on the show. 1, 2, 3, everybody say Memo's fired. 1, 2, 3. Memo, you're fired.
Just kidding, but you could be in the back with the camera.
All right. Well, thank you all for watching the Mortgage Heroes weekly podcast. Remember to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Turn on notifications so you get notified every time we drop a new episode. And for those of you listening on Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts, remember to download every episode so you never miss a beat here at the Mortgage Heroes. We'll see you again next week.
Bye, guys.